Intro: My journey to sobriety, coaching myself with ChatGPT. This isn't a highlight reel. This is a decision. I'm starting this journey to become sober not because everything fell apart, but because I want to build something better. I realized alcohol was no longer serving my life, my clarity, or the person I'm trying to become. It was filling gaps I hadn't learned how to face on my own. I'm using ChatGPT as a life coach, accountability partner, and reflection tool, not to replace responsibility, but to strengthen it. Every day, I'll be checking in, asking hard questions, tracking patterns, and learning how to respond to life without numbing out. This journey isn't about perfection. It's about honesty, discipline, and growth. Some days will be strong. Some days will be hard. But every day will be real. I'm documenting this publicly to stay accountable and to show what's actually possible when you choose clarity over comfort. If you're questioning your relationship with alcohol, or just want to live with more intention, you're welcome to walk this path with me.
How will ChatGPT help me stay accountable every day without alcohol? How can daily check-ins, reflections, and progress tracking keep me honest about cravings, emotions, and wins, even when motivation is low?
ChatGPT will help me stay accountable by creating daily structure when motivation is unreliable. Instead of relying on how I feel, I'll use consistent check-ins to anchor my behavior. Each day, I'll reflect on my cravings, emotions, and actions honestly, without judgment or excuses. Writing things out forces clarity. I can't hide from patterns when I see them repeated in my own words. Even on low motivation days, showing up to answer simple prompts keeps the habit alive. Progress tracking turns sobriety into something visible and measurable. Noticing small wins, better sleep, clearer thinking, choosing discipline over impulse, builds momentum. ChatGPT acts as a neutral mirror, helping me recognize growth while also flagging risk moments early. Accountability doesn't come from pressure, it comes from consistency. By checking in daily, I stay connected to my why, even when discipline has to carry me through moments where motivation disappears.
How can ChatGPT help me identify my personal triggers for drinking? How will pattern tracking around mood, time of day, stress, and environment help me recognize when I'm most vulnerable?
ChatGPT can help me identify my personal triggers for drinking by turning my daily experiences into clear patterns instead of vague feelings. Through regular check-ins, I can track my mood, stress levels, time of day, energy, and environment. Over time, repeating themes begin to emerge: certain hours, emotional states, or situations where cravings are stronger. What once felt random becomes predictable. By reviewing these patterns, I can see when I'm most vulnerable and why. For example, I may notice cravings spike when I'm tired, overwhelmed, alone in the evening, or coming off a stressful day. ChatGPT helps reflect these insights back to me without judgment, allowing me to plan ahead instead of reacting in the moment. Awareness creates leverage. When I know my triggers, I can adjust routines, add structure, or use healthier coping strategies before temptation escalates.
How will ChatGPT help me reframe cravings when they appear? What questions, reminders, or mental frameworks can be used to break the illusion that alcohol will help in the moment?
ChatGPT will help me reframe cravings by interrupting the automatic story my brain tells in the moment. Cravings often come with a false promise that alcohol will bring relief, calm, or enjoyment. Through intentional questions and reminders, ChatGPT helps slow that impulse down and replace it with clarity. Questions like, "What am I actually feeling right now?" or "What will this urge cost me tomorrow?" force me to pause instead of react. Mental frameworks such as playing the tape forward help expose the illusion. Instead of focusing on the short-term relief, I'm guided to visualize the real outcome: poor sleep, anxiety, regret, and lost momentum. ChatGPT also reinforces identity-based thinking, reminding me that cravings are temporary signals, not commands. By reframing urges as moments to practice discipline rather than problems to escape, cravings lose their power and become opportunities for growth instead of relapse.
How can ChatGPT help me build a sober identity instead of just quitting a habit? How will daily reflections, language shifts, and identity-based thinking help me move from trying not to drink to I don't drink?
ChatGPT can help me build a sober identity by shifting my focus from behavior avoidance to identity ownership. Instead of framing sobriety as something I'm resisting, daily reflections encourage me to define who I am becoming without alcohol. By consistently answering questions about my values, choices, and wins, I reinforce the idea that sobriety is part of who I am, not something I'm temporarily doing. Language plays a critical role in this shift. ChatGPT helps me move away from phrases like, "I'm trying not to drink," and toward, "I don't drink," or, "that no longer fits my life." Identity-based thinking strengthens consistency because actions naturally follow identity. When cravings arise, I'm no longer debating a rule, I'm protecting a version of myself I respect. Over time, these daily affirmations and reflections solidify sobriety as my default state, not a fragile decision.
7. How will ChatGPT help me process emotions instead of numbing them? How can guided prompts help me name, understand, and regulate emotions that alcohol once suppressed?
ChatGPT will help me process emotions by giving me structure and language at moments when feelings would normally be ignored or numbed. Alcohol once served as a way to avoid discomfort, but guided prompts encourage me to pause and identify what I'm actually experiencing. Questions like, "What emotion am I feeling right now? What triggered it? And what does this feeling need?" help turn vague discomfort into something understandable and manageable. By naming emotions, stress, loneliness, frustration, boredom, I reduce their intensity. ChatGPT helps me separate feelings from actions, reminding me that emotions are signals, not threats. Through reflection and simple regulation strategies such as breathing, movement, or journaling, I learn to respond rather than escape. Over time, this builds emotional resilience. Instead of suppressing feelings, I develop confidence in my ability to sit with them, process them, and move forward without alcohol.